Now, movies like Blue Bayou are my jam. Smaller budget, on location, film grain swimming across the screen. But does this movie end up being one of my favorites of the year? Well, I'll tell you in my review. Let's get started. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're diving right into Blue Bayou, a small film you might not have heard of, but it does hit theaters this weekend. A huge thank you to Focus Features for giving me the chance to watch this in person. Guys, it does make a difference on the big screen because the on-location shots look absolutely beautiful. It's directed and written by Chon, and it's starring Chon himself, Alicia Vikander, and Vondie Hall. Now, if you don't know much about the story, let's get into the summary just a little bit because trust me, it is incredibly powerful. Antonio is a Korean-American man who was raised in the Louisiana Bayou. He works hard to make a life for his family, but now he must confront the ghost of his past as he discovers that he could be deported from the only country he has ever called home. So the movie itself definitely is grounded in this issue that the United States still faces, which is not coming to a fair solution for immigrants and the deportation issue that this country faces. So the movie is definitely heavy, and there are some things I really loved about it, and then there are other things that didn't work quite well for me. But before we get into my review, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where we talk about movies like this all the time, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, guys, and hit the thumbs up button if you are a fan of these sort of indie movies just like I am, and go ahead and get loud down below and let me know if you see this movie, what did you think about it? Alrighty, y'all, so let's get into what I liked about Blue Bayou, because there are some elements to this film that I actually love. Like I said in my intro, movies like this are my jam. I love this bare bones, slice of life approach to a very personal story. And I like the fact that a lot of the writing and acting here is unorthodox. It's not trained, and there are moments where we find ourselves in a tattoo shop where Antonio works, and the conversation feels so natural because it is just taking that period of time, that moment in Louisiana, and it's just throwing it right up on the screen. There's not a lot of training, and it almost feels improv to a degree. So I love the fact that this movie really didn't try to be bigger than itself. And outside of the authenticity that the movie has on the surface, I think that technically speaking, this film is beautiful. I mean, there are some wonderful bits of cinematography here where I was floored. I don't know whether they shot directly on film or not, but I noticed this film grain effect just swimming across the screen, and I was in love. Cinematographers Ante and Matthew Chong really just did a great job at capturing everything within this 1:6:6:1 aspect ratio. It's incredibly fitting too because of how wide and vast these landscape shots are. I mean, I was just so engrossed into the story, and most of the time seeing these cotton candy painted skies when the sun is setting and Antonio just overlooking the bayou or just the lake was just beautiful. And I think that this is probably its strongest area, which is the cinematography. The movie is without a doubt one of the most beautiful films I've seen this year. Now, when it comes to the acting department, I will say this is the first I've seen of Chon as an actor, but I did feel like he brought the most grounded performance of the film as Antonio. And I actually love that his character grows because of two very important relationships in this movie. And the first one really is with his stepdaughter, Jessie, who's played by Sydney Kowalski, and she actually does a pretty good job acting in this movie overall. But I do love the fact that there's this dynamic chemistry between both Antonio and Jessie, and even though Antonio is not her biological father, Jessie still calls him dad, looks up to him, and even idolizes him at some points. So the movie definitely taps into that very early on in the film, and it is just simply beautiful. And the second relationship is with this woman that Antonio meets named Parker. Parker is played by Linh Dan Pham, and she is just excellent in this film. If anything, I think she does give my favorite performance in the movie because she plays a woman who is slowly dying from cancer, yet she is trying to teach Antonio that there is more he can accomplish in this life. Not only that, I think she teaches him the importance of life, of family, and of really not giving up. See, that to me is probably the most beautiful takeaway from their friendship in this film. And then there's this dinner time scene that I absolutely adored in this movie, and it probably is my favorite scene in the entire film because in that moment, Antonio understands that yes, there is more to his story. So I really love that they focused on both of those relationships. So we have a very bare bones story that I enjoyed for the most part, and then you have a very beautiful film coupled with some awesome relationships between our leads and different actors. So what is there to not like? Well guys, there are a few things. Now here's where the movie kind of falls flat for me, and that's everything that happens around Justin Chon and the acting as well. And it starts with Alicia Vikander. For as much as I love Alicia Vikander's acting, you guys, I just have to tell y'all, I think she is arguably the weakest link in this movie as Antonio's wife, Kathy. I never felt that Alicia Vikander really broke through and got to this next level. Her character almost felt a little too reserved in moments where the intensity, the emotion was rising, and I never felt like Alicia Vikander got there to match Justin Chon in some scenes. And I get that maybe her character was written that way, but that's also an issue with the script because her lines and her line delivery was really generic, unfortunately. And the chemistry between both Kathy and Antonio never felt very real to me, and it didn't feel very natural either. This really does hurt the film, especially in the third act where there is this full circle moment and you expect to come away very emotional in a way, but I never felt tied together with the film thanks to both Kathy and Antonio. If anything, it was really Antonio and everyone else that was doing a good job at connecting, and Kathy and Antonio never got there for me. And staying with the acting, the supporting cast here really is riddled with performances that broke all of my immersion in the movie at some points. One actor that I immediately think about is Chon, who plays Denny. Now, Denny and Ace are both police officers, they're partners, and Ace is Jesse's biological father. Well, they both have their run-in with Antonio, Kathy, and Jesse at a supermarket, and, well, things go down not the way I thought they would, and unfortunately, Antonio gets arrested. Now, Denny is pushing his bounds as a cop, but the acting here for me was entirely unconvincing. So even though it got messy in terms of drama, it also got messy in terms of acting because Chon was really tropey and always very over the top, but not in a good way. And unfortunately, there are plenty of moments just like this that really don't allow me to sink my teeth fully into this film. And then there's the legendary Vondie Hall, who really tries to carry that supporting cast in the second half as Antonio and Kathy's lawyer, but not even Vondie Hall could save the movie in this department, and that to me is a little disappointing. So let's move on to the next thing that didn't really work for me, and that is the writing, guys. It's a little rough around the edges, and the dialogue most of the time feels very unnatural outside of Antonio. There are some ideas that were presented in that second half that I don't think necessarily paid off for me, and I can't relate personally to the story, so I know that this might impact others more than it'll impact me, but I still felt pretty emotional in that final scene. I was getting close to tears, honestly. It's just everything before that felt a little too conflated. I really wanted the script to match the compelling story it was trying to tell, but it never got there for me, unfortunately. And again, while that final scene tore my heart out, I was a little disappointed that the movie never really knew where to end. While it falls just shy of 2 hours long, I feel like the story got a little too melodramatic for its own good at the end, and when we actually feel like they're naturally ending Antonio's story, we end up getting 10 more minutes. And that is the worst feeling, I think, in cinema. If the movie itself is a little hit and miss, and then you get to that final act and things start to ramp up, and boom, you think right here is where they're going to end it, I feel at my most, emotional, and then they continue, it takes you away, it takes you down from that high, and then when the movie finally does roll credits, I don't necessarily know if I agreed with the direction there towards the end. So overall, you guys, Blue Bayou has a lot of elements here that speak to me as someone who loves films just like this. But for every step forward, I do feel like the movie took 2 steps backwards in terms of the very rough script, the unnatural dialogue, unconvincing acting, yes, even from Alicia Vikander, who I love and think can really deliver an incredible performance. But in this movie, I think she brought down some of those more emotional scenes. This really is a compelling story and one that deserves to be spoken about because it speaks to a larger issue here in America when it does come to those unfair laws for immigrants and children brought here from out of the country at a very young age. I really wish that this film brought it together a little bit better towards the end and was neater, because I do think that the movie is a little too bloated for its own good, and Blue Bayou ends up being a film that I think is visually beautiful and features a couple of good performances, but it doesn't do anything to really get over the hump for me. So I think by year's end, it might be a little forgettable. I think the film is fine overall, guys, but I don't think it's anything that I would say you need to rush out to the theater for. It's a good rental on a weekend if you're looking to cry, but other than that, I don't think Blue Bayou really got to that next level, which could have made it better than just an okay movie. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real review for Blue Bayou, a film I think that would get a strong 3 out of 5 if I had to rate this movie, but I need to know what you guys think down below in the comments, so go ahead and get loud and hit the big red button below. Subscribe to the channel, y'all, if you enjoyed this review and you want to see much more just like it as the year goes on, and hit the thumbs up button as well if you enjoyed this content. Alrighty, guys, well, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here because it's raining, and well, I need to go eat food. Alrighty, y'all, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.